Welcome to the Junior Jobs Podcast, where we give actionable job search advice to new software engineers that is relevant to today's job market. In today's developer interview, I'm talking with Jose Castaño, who was recently hired, fired, and then hired again as a junior software engineer, where we compare the pros and cons of his first two employers and how to best evaluate which companies you should pursue for your first job in tech. All right, Jose, so what were some of the red flags in your first role?
And some of the red flags in my first role where I think one of them was the lack of communication in terms of what was expected from me. Um, for one reason or the other, what it was offered in the first place in on the interview when I managed to secure the role, they weren't able to deliver for various reasons. But I think when they don't throw enough workload at you in the first couple of months, you can sort of guess that if 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 that's what's been happening, I think chances are that is the pattern. So the red flag I would say is a lack of communication and also lack of work as well. Because if you are in a place where you have to be chasing up to get work and to get tasks in front of you, it means that they actually have nothing to give you, and they probably overestimated bringing someone junior and thinking, okay, we're going to have enough workload to give to this person. Sometimes that's not the case. Things don't go as planned, and there is no one to blame or no companies to blame. It's just things. When you try to execute a plan, sometimes things don't go your way, and that means I had these expectations for this person to join in. I can't deliver those things, but it's up to us to spot that pattern and think, oh, okay, this is a red flag,
Mhm.
like you just mentioned. So I would say, yeah, both factors: lack of communication and the workload.
Yeah, something else that also highlights about the organization is that they may not necessarily be set up to be a good mentor for junior developers. It sounds like all of the other developers in the program were so busy either on their own work or they just weren't interested enough in kind of building you up. That was the natural output of that is that you were not able to take on enough work or ramp up as quickly as they may have hoped, which could lead to you getting let go. Luckily, in
Mhm.
most companies that I've worked with, they have like a 90-day plan where at least the first few months, you're kind of in the honeymoon period where they don't expect a lot from you. But the best thing you can do that I found in that scenario is try to blow that 90-day plan out of the water and kind of exceed their expectations. Well,
Agree.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you had that experience then. So, as you went to interview for your second role,
Mhm.
how did you navigate that job search process so that you can identify an opportunity that you think might be a better fit for a new developer, where you can get that mentorship that you wanted?
The way I navigated the process was, I threw myself out there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on other platforms, and I go to meetups about .NET, and I try to network as much as possible. So, the usual classic process. I'm open to look for another opportunity. So, okay, let's start the networking process. And I went through, I don't know, countless interviews, and this one came out of nowhere. Really, I got a phone call, someone saying, "Okay, I think I've got a job for you." I said, "Well, just check it my way and see. Let's see if A, I can deliver what they want, and B, I am the kind of profile that they look for." Um, the recruiter came back to me saying that they actually want to meet you face to face. And then when they said that to me, I thought, wow, that that is a pro for me. That's a big pro. That is a big plus for me, because this means they just want to see who you are instead of the technical side of things where they believe they can teach you. Tech can always be taught, and someone can learn tech through employment. Uh, Attitudes, softer skills, communication is something that is embedded in the person. So when they said that they wanted to do a face to face, I was really, really, really happy with that. And then there was
Yeah.
not going to be any technical test. So yeah,
If you need help finding your first job in tech, make sure to check out David Roberts' video series called Standing Out in Tech, which covers every aspect of the junior developer job search and includes checklists for your resume and LinkedIn to make sure you stand out from the pack. He's a former recruiter and software engineer himself, so you know you can trust his stuff. And to sweeten the deal, if you enter the code JuniorJobs30 at checkout, one word, you'll get 30% off. Yeah, someone who's a big advocate for remote work. I'm also simultaneously an advocate for in-person interviews and work where possible, just for the relationship aspect of it. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed who don't turn their screen on for a virtual interview. You know,
Oh,
it's really difficult for me to kind of assess if I can be friends with this person because we're going to be spending a lot of time together. I understand not
yeah, yeah,
everybody
yeah.
can do that, but if you can, it's definitely a big differentiator because there are definitely a lot of those that are. And then taking a
Yeah.
step back a little bit, you said this was you did a lot of networking. Was it through one of these networking events that you got connected with this recruiter that led to this opportunity?
No, this wasn't. This was a particular phone call from someone from an agency I haven't heard before. Someone just kind of, sent me the usual LinkedIn connection request. They initially, I think they offered me a role, but it wasn't something that I was looking for. And then they kind of kept my profile, and then they phoned me again because they had this role and they wanted to put it in front of me just to see if I was going to be a good fit. And yeah, since the very beginning, and the way they approached the whole thing and the whole process for me was so okay, the thing, this smells good. This is different. And when someone tells you, for me the message was, I I don't care at what technical level you are. I just want to see who you are. For me, that I put myself up for that all the time, and I value that so much that a company wants to see who you are instead of
Mhm.
I know React, I know all these cool frameworks, and I am part of these communities and that. No, no, no. Just let me see who you are. Let me
Well,
see what you could.
I wanna give a kudos to you because a lot of developers, when they first get their job, kind of stop. They stop connecting with people on LinkedIn and oftentimes stop responding to recruiter in mail. Well, as much as possible, you still want to be on these recruiters or these agencies, you wanna be on their mind, because you never
Mhm.
know down the road, maybe, a few months, a few years, they'll still have your resume on file, and if an opportunity opens up that aligns with a gap in your work experience, they can that much more easily move forward with you as opposed to having me start over from scratch.
Mhm.
So talking about this second opportunity then, so you're going through the interview process. This second time, what were some of the important things that you were looking for that were missing in that first role that you really wanted to see in this second one?
Guidance, support, and I think this is the most important quality for me. Create a safe space for someone like me to ask questions. I for one reason or the other, like I said, the things don't go to plan on the first experience. Although, it gave me an insight into the industry, and I am very very grateful for everything. I think everything happens in life for a reason. Um, but but the first place wasn't not a safer space. Of course, I was to say that it was a safe space, but I was I was a little bit afraid to ask certain questions because time that was allocated to me wasn't enough for me to grow myself as a developer, to understand the the technical side of object-oriented programming, why you are working with these classes when you have to throw methods. The nitty-gritty, the beef, the substance of programming, instead of you do that, this is the way we do it. You don't need to know anything else about it. Well, I don't, that doesn't sound quite all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
how do you find that out during the interview process without without having to actually get hired and see how it works?
So what do you mean? Sorry, my first experience?
So your first experience had a poor mentorship setup
Mm,
that kind of led to you not getting the support that you needed.
yeah.
And this second one, they have great mentoring. It sounds
Mhm,
like great guidance in a very safe space. Is there any way that you would think that somebody going through the interview process can kind of,
mhm,
as they're talking to a recruiter, a
yeah.
hiring manager, how they can discern what that culture is going to be like before getting hired?
Difficult one. It's a difficult one because the interview process sometimes doesn't reflect what the company is like, and you just need to be as straightforward as an upfront as possible. you have to demand, you have to value yourself as well. You know, I understand that breaking into tech, sometimes you will think that you will take up on anything that comes your way. Do you know what? That sometimes is not the way. You need to value yourself. You need to understand where you are, who you are as a person, because you know, put the salary aside, put the money aside. Of course, if you're going to be an entry level, you're going to have to accept a pay cut. It is the way it is if you're coming from a different industry. But you need to be as upfront as possible. You need to say, look, are you in a position to deliver and allocate time for me to grow as a developer in this company? Are you able to support me with mentoring? Am I am I allowed to, you know, just to get on a call with my mentor like 6 times a day if I would need to, and talk about a different topic that I'm covering today, and talk about something that I'm working on? If they say yes straight away, and you know, that's is a good sign.
Mhm.
If they if that yes is not a solid yes, say, you know, if
Well, then at least you
yeah,
know what you're getting into, and maybe you are desperate, and maybe, finances dictate that you do take a job
right,
that's not as, optimal as you would hope for, but at least you know, get going into it, and you can kinda prepare for it.
yeah.
I like the questions that you called out there, because juniors that are desperate to get that first job often don't realize is the interview is a two-way street. You are typically, as a candidate, so desperate to get that job, you'll say and do anything for the, hiring company to like you. But similarly, the that company is also interviewing with you. They're desperate to get somebody hired onto their team. They need help and support. And if they've taken the time to talk to you, that means you're impressive enough that that uh that they think you could be a good fit and they want you to be a good fit. So
Yeah,
they have to impress you in return. So both
absolutely.
ways are kind of putting their best foot forward, sometimes maybe misrepresenting some of their experience and how things operate. But it's important for you to, yes, ask those targeted questions about the work experience and culture to make sure that you can get the support you need to be successful as a new developer.
Absolutely. For the people that is out there just looking for, I would say just value yourself, you know, understand where you are, understand what you want from a company, be upfront, be straightforward with them. And it's on the best interest for the company just to listen to someone that wants to get to a level and wants to get to a level through that company. I they I love the second process because it was very plain and very straightforward. This is where I am. If you can help me to achieve XYZ, you're gonna have 110% from me. And that's exactly what happens, you know. And I know a lot of people out there that, you know, they're really good developers, better than me, and juniors and trying to break into technology. And you know, it is difficult right now. But all I'm saying is, you know, value yourself and above anything else, you know.
Yeah, a little ray of hope here, if we can offer it to the listeners. First, remind me how long did you work at that first job before you were on the job search again?
I I landed that role in August 20, what was it, 2022? Where are we? 2023 now. God, that's mental. 2022, yeah, August 22, and I left. Yeah, I left in June. I left in June, but I think I was looking for a second for a second opportunity way earlier than that because I spotted the red flags. And again, this is not about
Mhm.
talking people down. The plan wasn't executed as as it was meant to be executed.
Yeah.
Things don't go as planned. That forced me to look for
Yeah,
other
two
opportunities.
two things to call out there. I just want to highlight you had less than a year of experience, but the second job search was just that much easier. You mentioned you didn't have to do a technical interview. An agency reached out to you based off of, your activity online. And I know it's really hard for developers that have 0 years of experience right now, and I don't want to, disregard that. But I wanna let you know that as long as you get some experience, any experience, it just gets, infinitely easier. And the second thing is you keep talking about expectations and how expectations weren't met or they didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Another question I wanna throw out as a possibility that you can ask during the interview process is just, what does success look like after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And
Mhm.
they'll let you know, hey, we want you to be completing X number of story points. We want you to be working, this amount independently, XYZ. So then when you approach that first job, you kind of understand, how aggressive you need to move. Because the expectations are clear. And then in that first role, you mentioned lack of mentorship. Did you have any sort of regular touch point with a mentor or a manager, like a regular one on one?
I think I had one, but because I requested it, you say it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is the case that I was talking about. There was, yeah, there was a time they wanted to allocate to somebody like myself. They couldn't deliver that time because just the level of work wasn't there. So yeah, I had to be asking for one-to-ones just to know because I wanted to know where I was, right? I wanted to know, I wanted to do more technical things. I was only working on I did a little bit of training to, like 2 weeks left to my own devices just to, just learning the basics of C sharp and .NET and all that malarkey. And then, yeah, it was a constant, okay, so yeah, can we just have a catch up just to see what kind of work you're going to be throwing my way?
Mhm.
And yeah, their responses were a bit flaky just because there wasn't any workload to throw at me, and that wasn't
Sure.
made clear to me, you see? So
Sure. So it was expectations of you, but also the other way around. So the other thing I'll throw out is when you first get hired, one of the requests that you should make is for at least a weekly touch point with your,
mm,
and then if you have that regular cadence, then you know that you'll have a chance to, at least at a regular basis, ask some questions. You'll have a reserved time slot that you know you're not bothering them with, with some ad hoc question.
mm,
And if you're not meeting expectations, you can get a heads up on that before it becomes a big issue that can lead to you being let go. So
yeah,
you should definitely, throughout your entire career, probably, but definitely starting off, have at least a weekly one. It's called a one-on-one with your
mm.
manager.
It's interesting because you mentioned weekly, right? So I do it on a monthly basis. So I did it on
Okay.
the first one, I did it on the second one, the third one. What is it? I've been with this new company and what was it? August again. So I started in August. So September, September, yeah. I'm only 5 months in. So
Well, if once a month works for you, I'm not
yeah.
gonna step on your toes there, Jose. But I will say, for a lot of developers in that first role,
Yeah.
they don't know what they don't know, and you
Yeah.
gotta oftentimes, it's less about how fast you're working or how many story points you're completing, and it's more about how well are you doing at managing the expectations of the people around you. Um,
I get that, and I'm not I'm your proposal about a week, you're way more experienced than myself, so you're probably right. However, what I am, my counter to that is I speak almost on a daily basis with my mentor, and this is something else that I wanted to mention for just people that is going through the same experience like me, just like kind of a year and a half experience. And when it comes to asking questions, right, this is key for me. I don't ask questions. I present a case to my mentor. Before asking the question, I have probably gone talking 5 minutes, explaining what I am trying to do, what 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 was in place before I touched it. I want to manipulate this piece of code. I want to manipulate this feature. This is what I want to obtain. How do I get there? So presenting a case rather than how do I do this? How do I split a list of strings and how do I pass, a string as an argument of a list? No, 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 no. Just present a case. That's why, I talk on a daily basis with my mentor. And sometimes I say to him, look, you probably hate talking to me because I talk a lot. And he said, no, 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 no. This is the way you should go because that is the only way you're going to learn. And Eric, the light bulbs in your brain, they switching, the switches, they start to get just switching on, switching on, switching on, because there are so many things that you comprehend when you're doing it. When someone explains that to you and when you know what you're asking, it's
and they can
unbelievable.
give so much better answers if you give them that context around it, and they're
Yeah,
much more likely to want to give them to you when they know that you've already done all this homework yourself.
yeah,
So that you're not just, relying on them to do everything for you.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Jose, so as you think back into the past, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a developer who is searching out for their first role.
Mhm.
Any, final thoughts for how developers should evaluate different roles before we wrap up?
Yes. Bit straightforward upfront. Don't be afraid to ask questions in the interview. Just make sure that you make them understand that what you want is the support and guidance that is gonna beneficial for both parties here, right? So it's not going to be only on your own benefit; it's going to be the company's benefit because they're going to have to. I'm also looking for the company side. It's so much that goes into training someone, right? You have to invest both money and time. Sometimes 6 months, okay, we pay this person a lot of money. it doesn't, it's not turned out to be a great fit for the company. And we have both wasted both time and money. And I get that from a company, I wouldn't like to do that with someone. So then it's up to the company to say, oh, actually, maybe, you know what, we need someone that can actually hit the ground running,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
we might not be able to offer all that amount of support. However, this is what we can offer. So if both parties are in a great, if they have a great understanding of what they expect from each other, that is going to be key for the rest of anyone else, anyone's career. And then the second one, this is a preference for me. This is a preference, just a preference. You probably will say that I'm wrong, or somebody else will have a different opinion. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't look for startups. I would look for a very well established business. It doesn't have to be a big corporation. Look, you know, look for 100,000 employees.
Sure, sure. I mean, the startup scene, they have a lot of needs, and if they're pre-funding, they're probably desperate for work because 'cause they're not gonna be able to bring on, like, well-experienced, high-paying, developers. But you're right, you're not gonna get a lot of support, and it's gonna be the blind leading the blind, so they say,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be difficult. I would agree with that, that you'd probably get more mentorship and support from a larger, more established company. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I
I'm
mean,
not
they already
saying
have.
that. Yeah, I'm not saying that there will be a startup set that will offer a brilliant amount of training, support, guidance. I'm not saying that. It's just my preference, but yeah.
Sure. Painting in broad strokes, you're probably true. That's probably true. Well, Jose, thank you so much for hopping on today. It's all the time we have. So hopefully some of this advice was helpful for new developers that are trying to evaluate different opportunities and how they should be approaching the job search. So I appreciate your thoughts, and thank you to everybody that's listening, and we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Jobs Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, as that helps us reach more developers in need. And don't forget to check the show notes for details on today's sponsor and other job search services that we provide.